they shatter with the stroke of a pen. Truth buried deep, oh here we go again. Gunner's voice pounding, raising up the fight. Justice ain't a whisper, it's a battle tonight. Gunning for justice, we won't back down. Fighting for the lost in every broken town. Judges blind, caseworkers turn their eyes. Lift your fist, scream, their lives won't paralyze. Families they shatter with the stroke of a pen. Truth buried deep, oh here we go again. Gunner's voice pounding, raising up the fight. Justice ain't a whisper, it's a battle tonight. System cracks, red tape wins tight, but the spirit won't break, even in the night. From the ashes, the cry gonna rise up strong. With every heartbeat, it fuels the song. Corruption crawls, spreading like a fire. But passion burns hotter, crawling up higher. The system ain't ready for the storm that's us. One by one, we're breaking their rust. Corruption crawls, spreading like a fire. But passion burns hotter, crawling up higher. The system ain't ready for the storm that's us. One by one, we're breaking their rust.
Hey look, this for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on, but now it's war, this gunning foe, CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in they pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunner got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forged and flipped. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? Then tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof. Sworn under oath, now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home, now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunner got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, They ain't law, they just people, corrupt people. And when the people rise, ain't no system safe. The Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah. Wait.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Gunning for CPS. I'm your host, Gunner. Welcome to another Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, as we do every week. Guys, we just have a couple of things, updates. One, we will be talking about and starting and continuing part of the series of education of foundational documents. We're going to take a break where we left off in the Constitution. From there, I know you guys last week we had a special edition to where we did a specific show that is going to be played nationwide at a lot of these rallies and everything else on the history of CPS in the system. If you guys missed that, go to our YouTube channel and you can check that out on our YouTube channel, Gunning for CPS, as well as the CPS Breaking News Network on YouTube. Those two channels have that. You're going to see a lot of this coming out. This was done for a very specific group, national group, as professional, talking about the history of how CPS became what it is today, and going through everything from the Social Security Act of 1935, a little previously before that, and then going into what we have today and why it has become what it is today. One, I want to jump on the energy. As you guys know, everything, I'm sure it's made everybody else's news, is Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. There's been a big argument over the fact of whether or not this is, I have said that this is an act of war on many platforms, and this is why. And explain this. One, Charlie Kirk was killed, assassinated, not just killed, assassinated, because of his First Amendment right to speak and to bring the thing of debate. That's when somebody didn't like what he was debating, or the fact he was bringing back debate, he was killed for it. Now, whether you agreed or not, that is constitutionally sound, we'll say, doctrine. In other words, that's what it is. That's why it was considered an act of war, because it wasn't throwing this, it wasn't doing that. It was somebody using a weapon or violence. It was using an act of violence to terminate not just his First Amendment right to be able to speak his mind and have an open what debate is, what is the supposed to be the platform of even what happens in Congress, is the ability to debate, to bring both sides and come to some sort of agreement or some middle ground on the way things are. And that's why you'll see a lot in the House and in the Senate and everything else. There's such a division between the two sides, or this or that, as well as there's just one or the other, and it's this way or that way. There's no common ground to sit and have a debate and have a conversation, because each side is so resolved that there is no really room for negotiation, if you will. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Some of the corruption and the other things that we're talking about, and I know we do have a guest tonight, Darren, the CPS Punisher, will be with us here just a little bit later. But I'm going to show you guys a couple of things that I found this week that we've talked about, and you guys wonder why. And this is the feeling of our nation, okay? And you guys have heard me talk about this officer that was recently fired over doing I believe it was a TikTok video. Of talking to other law enforcement that has, from my understanding, has seen some of the clips on my show or stuff on Facebook, and knows about some of the things that are going on, that we're not doing this to basically say, hey, that there's a lot of good people out there that they just don't realize. They're realizing they're not upholding their oath, and they're becoming, and they're gaining that wisdom and that knowledge to turn around and say, we're violating our oath, and we're doing stuff to we the people, and now they're waking up. And if we don't watch out, they're going to come after us. And they have every legal right under the Constitution to do so. Well, let's watch this one together real quick.
And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that these actions are going to wake a sleeping giant, i.e. the American people. We're violating people's rights. and taking money from them, or even worse, arresting them and depriving them of their freedom when they are exercising their constitutional rights. You need to step up and say, no, that's not me. That's not what I signed up for, and that's going against my oath. And if that costs you your job, so be it. We need to start looking at ourselves as officers and thinking, is what I'm doing right? I got a call and I said, listen, the video needs to be taken down right now, and you need to accept a letter of reprimand. Or we're going to take a very different approach to this if you say no again. Greg, if you openly defy your governor, you can't be a police officer in the state of Washington. And I told him, I said, you know what, I can respect that. And if I were in your office, I would shake your hand and respectfully disagree and say, maybe I'm not meant to be a police officer in the state of Washington then. I believe that the Constitution supersedes all other documents, all other laws.
Okay, guys.
If this continues,
Um,
you're going to see bloodshed in the streets. And the thing that I want you
I'm just telling you right now that officer spoke nothing but truth. And what this is what's that got to do with CPS and everything else? This is part of the system. You notice that they've been showing up with CPS to steal children. This is somebody that's going on. And here's the other part of this. Did you notice in that video that man was former military? Do you realize when you're former military and you take that oath, even though you have an honorable discharge, you've got your DD 214, whatever it may be, you violate your oath as a citizen throughout your lifetime, they can recall you back into the military specifically to have a military tribunal against you. Because you gave that oath for life. And there's too many out there that have forgotten that. Now, it's not just that bad. Now, let's go into some of the other things. We've talked about the mass corruption, everything else. Now, you've got the police. This is somebody trying to save his other people. I have more integrity. And he's absolutely right. The Constitution does supersede, no matter what the governor says, no matter what your police chief says. With this and that, you are supposed to be able, that is the one thing you can do, is questionable orders within this and that they are telling them they don't have that discretion to make that decision. This is unconstitutional. And here's my grievances why. And that is something that should be brought to the state law librarian to turn around and say, is this constitutional? Or even bring it into the federal courtroom or ask somebody. We need an exam. We have a constitutional question. Here's the thing that officer should do. File a federal case under constitutional question and then recover his thing of why he was fired for wrongful termination under constitutional question, because the question becomes, was not what I said constitutional? And basically he's saying, and what they're putting through there is the governor is asking them to do something unconstitutional, hence illegal, violating the very oath that governor took. I want the governor removed. Why? He's trying to make me enforce constitutional orders, unconstitutional orders. See, that's where the cops turn against the system too. And we get some of that system of saying, you're asking me to do something this. Well, then listen, officers, deputies, start filing, lose your fucking job. I guarantee you lose your job, you quit because of what you stood for in your community is going to step up and find you a job. Don't worry about that, because you stood up for we the people, which is what you're supposed to do under your oath. That much I guarantee. Now that's one system. This is just one leg. We're going to show you something else, and this is going to blow your mind. And people just turn around and go, Now, let's see if I can find. Oh yeah, that one was this. I don't have TikTok. I found a way to circumvent some of that stuff for this and that, because once again, I was banned from TikTok. But obviously, under their advertisements or something on Facebook, they will allow you to play certain things if you have a desktop. Watch this.
Lies in court, threats, and retaliation against parents who fight back. We've heard from victims, attorneys, and officials about what's going on, but we haven't heard from the social workers themselves until now. In disturbing detail, they back up many of the things we've reported, that families are harassed and workers are pressured, all in an effort to boost adoption numbers. Because she would not ignore a half-dozen allegations of abuse in this foster home, a state social worker was fired.
I did what I felt like I had to do. It was the right thing to do, and I stand by the complaint.
Because Pat Moore of Ellesmere, Kentucky knew she was right, she filed a lawsuit. And last month, the state paid her $380,000 to settle it. When she found that 2 foster parents had criminal records, a son living there with multiple felonies, and a convicted sex offender visiting and sometimes caring for the children, she refused to arrange an adoption. Her CPS supervisors responded with this memo recommending the adoption should proceed quickly.
Our theory is that the basis for this is the tie to the federal money. That every time a child is not placed in a home, the state of Kentucky, through its cabinet, is losing federal money.
It's an allegation we've seen many times in our 3-year-long investigation of Kentucky CPS, that instead of trying to bring families together, the cabinet forces adoptions to earn more federal bonus money. And it apparently started in 2004, when adoptions in Kentucky ballooned to 724, while the federal bonus money more than doubled, from $452,000 the year before to more than $1 million.
Statistics. The cabinet puts pressure on statistics because federal money and state money come from statistics.
This former state social worker is so afraid of retaliation on her family by the cabinet, she asked us to conceal her identity.
You get praise. The cabinet praises you for terminating rights and adopting the kids out immediately.
She says the concerted effort to take children away and put them up for adoption was so brazen, she actually saw someone successfully place an order for children.
Someone could not have a child and wanted a child, so within a community, this certain person saw a family that was in distress, was having a hard time, and relayed to workers that they would like those children. And that's exactly what has happened.
And this former CPS supervisor, who also fears retaliation, says if an order for a child was delayed or denied, her supervisors would roll in and try to overturn local decisions.
This one family was promised a child, and when it happened that the child was going to be reunified with the parent, they called our regional office. Our regional office came down on our county. They harassed the birth parents and that kind of thing because they didn't agree with our decision.
So they need to say bye.
And remember the case of Vanessa Shanks, who had her kids taken away, and when she fought back, saw her relatives' kids taken away, and when she won her appeal, saw her attorney's child taken away? These former CPS workers say that kind of retaliatory power is common, and in this secretive one-side system, they can take your kids away right now if they want to and get away with it.
I can call in a report tomorrow, and I can make it seem very real to the point that a family will be investigated. And whoever gets it could come up with a substantiation of, say, let's say neglect, and it might not be true. But it doesn't matter.
Now, according to data just released a couple of days ago, there is a huge disparity between counties on adoption rates. Some counties reunify with the family 100% of the children they've taken away. Others last year adopted out as high as 82% of the children they removed from the home. If you want to look at the stats and more, we have a link to the Child Welfare Report on the homepage of our website, WLKY.com. The Commissioner of CPS will talk to me and respond to our investigation.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's scary as hell. The government was never to have that kind of power. That is an act of tyranny. 100%. And here's the other problem. One, there's been no crime. If you'll notice, there's no criminal thing through it. They come in for any reason that we suspect thing, but you get no due process. Child abuse is a criminal code, and they're adjudicating, in this case, Kentucky, they're adjudicating criminal court in civil court without due process, no jury, no right to face your accusers, covering and burying evidence. All these other things are going. Why can I can say those things? Corrupt judges that will allow CPS to create a case by kidnapping your children. Now, a lot of you will turn around and say, well, how do you know that's true? Because it's happening to my wife right now. A judge that speaks out on the record and says, I hate homeschool. That's a violation of your oath. That's somebody's freedom of choice. That's a violation of an executive order by this current sitting president of this country. You can't do that. Parents have a right to choose. Yet there was nothing there. And yes, we have confirmed the case that is in Kentucky did come out of Tennessee, which is automatic a jurisdictional nightmare for them to prove now. So now that we have all this, yes, moving forward in some of our stuff, we're going to be taking appropriate action is all I'm going to say. And making sure all those things are taken care of. We will be pushing to move to expose all this thing. But for some people to turn around and say some amount of hearsay is allowed in a courtroom blew my mind. There is no room in any courtroom, civil court, criminal court, family court. It does not matter. Hearsay does not belong in the courtroom. 100%. Matter of fact, there is a threshold when it comes down to it coming from hearsay to a point is you have to have two, or I believe it's two or more people. Matter of fact, this is a great time. Darren, are you back there? Bring yourself out here because that's a good question. And I forgot that here. I believe the number is two or more witnesses to become fact. Beyond hearsay, then it's not hearsay. You've had two or more people testify against you of the same nature, of so on and so forth, and something that has been somewhat confirmed, which is why we tell everybody, listen, record. Why? Because a record is non-biased and it can cover your butt, because then they can draw their own conclusions from their own point of view of what they witnessed as the person that recorded witnessed it. I think he's back there trying to come in. I think he's looking it up. But you got no voice there, brother.
No, I know that one for sure. It's two witnesses because, as a matter of fact, in most states, two witnesses is enough to pass off a document as far as even needing a notary public for you. So, as long as you have two witnesses that are standing there that saw you sign a certain document, that can be used in place of a notary's stamp. So it is two witnesses.
That's an amazing thing. I think I'm getting some back feed off of your speaker there.
Yeah, hold on a second. There you go. You should be all right.
So if you've got hearsay, for somebody to say that a certain amount of hearsay is allowed in any courtroom is a slap in the face of due process itself. Is that not correct?
It absolutely. Everything in this is a slap in the face, Gunner. You know that, and I know that. This whole thing is there's nothing that's being done that is anywhere near what anything in the Constitution says, what anything in the Bill of Rights says, what anything in any of the documents that we have says. I mean, you've got blatant disregard for just the law overall over everything.
But let's break it down, because does not every state have that same policy in place as a policy and procedure that says it has to meet that threshold regardless of the supremacy clause that is defaulted to in every state's constitution? The state also reflects that in some of their filings and their policies and procedures that must be handled, that you must meet that threshold of having two more, that it's not hearsay. or a video or something. I mean, all that is still in there.
Right. Well, I mean, there's different levels. There's different levels. You know, like you have a preponderance amount of evidence, which is, you know, a preponderance amount of evidence means that might be, could be, maybe, possibly. I mean,
Right.
so I mean, there are some people that could say that would say that because hearsay is allowed in preponderance amount of evidence, which is
Correct.
a bunch of BS.
But it
And
should be
that's
backed
what they
up.
use.
Isn't that what a lot of the
You would
rules
think.
is? It has to be backed up
You
with
would,
enough hard evidence too
you would
for
think.
that to be qualified.
You would think, and what I'm seeing more and more of all the time is, you know what? You can have every damn rule in the book totted, cross T's, all of that stuff, but you know what? You can't account for what kind of corruption is going to be sitting at the bench. You
That
just
is,
can't.
yep, absolutely.
So you can sit here and
You
whip
mean
out your
like let's
constitution.
put it this way. You mean like the corruption of a judge saying on the record, I hate homeschoolers,
Yeah,
and then begin to adjudicate after that to steal somebody's kids and kidnap them based off of that bias alone? Not any
mhm.
other evidence, but off that bias alone. Just that bias alone is enough. But once again, that's enough to remove it. That should be enough to remove a judge.
You would think. You would think, but like again, man, you know, I saw it in my case where I asked the judge to recuse herself because she was privy to arguable information in a previous hearing, which was a restraining order from the caseworker on myself, and she was the judge that sat in on that, so she got to hear all kinds of stuff that wasn't to
Yeah.
be brought into the TPR. But we sat there, we ordered the judge to be recused. She went back and decided that she could go ahead and she could go on without having that affect her. So answer me this: how are you asking a judge to recuse themselves, and then there they are going back in there ruling on this themselves?
Right.
How does that make any sense, right? And that's what to you, that's what would have taken place on that day if that happened. You know, like
Well,
so these judges with the recusal. I mean, this is just getting out of control. I would think that I don't know what the exact rules are for the recusal of a judge. But I would think that another judge should hear this out before or make that decision of that discrepancy, right? When you believe, when you think so.
well, not only that, but the other question that I've become to have of these particular things is if a judge is willing to broadly say stuff like that in court or other things in court like they have, does not the duty then of these sworn bar members to uphold the Constitution and have ethics? Why are they not reporting the judges? And in that last video, I think you see why. Because if you go against CPS will come take your kids. That's an act of tyranny for rebellion. If anything, that happened in the case and that was made public. I'll be honest with you. The people of that county should have risen up and took the tyrants, as
Yeah.
in the Battle of Athens.
You know, there's any of these, I've heard it multiple times firsthand where you've gone and seeked help from others or people that were maybe just in a position of power that could hurt you. And those exact words are what come out of their mouths, man. Well, they could come and take our kids.
Well,
now, how is that not in any situation? Is that not duress? Is that not ruling with fear? Like, how are the checks and balances in this country not out of just going berserk right now saying, whoa, 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 because there is no check of power. These people hold the trump card to any solid family. They hold the goddamn, they're taking your kids, period. You're going to do whatever you have to do.
And here's the thing, and I guess this is where this is a golden opportunity, especially in anything that we're dealing with, is now the question becomes of having a case of your own personal case, calling those attorneys to the stand of why didn't you report these things or these crimes, let alone there's with the possibility of investigations going on, this and that, of asking those officers of the court, why didn't you report the judge for the unconstitutional practices in the Rule 60 and this and this and that? You can articulate it better than me. And technically, if I'm hiring an attorney, aren't you supposed to do that as if you were me in my best interests? I mean, there comes the issue of ineffective counsel of saying, but you didn't. And then it becomes a question of this and that. But this is the thing. This is a mafia driven. And we wonder why this system is what it is. And what this is with notice it's called it's called a social program. When you hear the word social, it means socialist every time. When you look into it, it's a socialist Marxist program. That's not America. The idea of America is we don't need these programs. We should be helping each other out. We should be doing communities. When one falls, we come in as a community and help each other. but they've messed that up even throughout. Why? Because a lot of them were farming communities. And when somebody suffered of one farm, all the farmers in the area pitched in. If somebody got sick or laid up or had to have surgery, the other farmers, once they got done with theirs, spent extra time helping their neighbor out. Why? Because they knew when they needed help, they could go depend on them to take and help them out. But we've lost that in this country, and it's something that's so American that we've lost the very sense of what America is. And for some organization, let alone these people aren't elected. These people are, once again, they are state actors. They're appointed, they're hired, and they're protected by the powers of the state. And if you'll notice that cop made the connection in that video with what his supervisor told him. If you're not going to obey the orders from the governor, so the governor is the dictator of the state, he's now a dictator that you can't even question the Constitution. I would much rather have a cop give that second thought. Is what I'm about to do constitutionally sound? That's what they're supposed to do. Why? Because your duly elected sheriff takes that oath as well as anything else, and they're elected by the people, by we the people of each county, to what? Protect us. Not just against, people that would steal and take our lives and this and that, but against large government. The sheriff has got more power than the governor. If the sheriff comes in and decides the governor's being an asshole and doing something wrong, he has the ability within every county within that state to go in to that governor's office with his deputies. And who's he going to have? The state police there. Notice the difference between a sheriff and police, how police are hired security. The difference between a sheriff and gets with the other sheriffs. Hey, let's all go in there and let's take this governor and put him in handcuffs. Why? For what they did. When you have your representative voting a certain way or doing certain things or saying certain, it's called accountability. You just violated your oath and your constitution. You're under arrest. But we call it politics. Oh, they're allowed to do it. Now we've come up with excuses rather than accountability. But we wonder all this time of, hey, why is this guy? And now people are waking up and listen, that Charlie Kirk energy of people getting fired because of what they've said. Yes, hey, that's freedom of speech. But here's the second part of it. You have to be accountable for what you said. That's American. So let's use some of that same energy and turn around and say, hey, we're not going to tolerate this shit anymore out of our judges, out of CPS and everything else, and hold them accountable. Listen, it got so bad in one kind. Listen, that's Kentucky. Understand, these are a lot of things about Kentucky. Black eye. I got another one for you. Here's an update. You guys remember that story about the sheriff shooting the judge?
Oh, yeah.
Here's one for you.
Do you guys remember this guy? Judge Kevin Mullins, who was shot to death in his chambers on camera by the town sheriff, had turned the Letcher County Jail into a brothel to fulfill the disgusting fantasies of him and his buddies. And I don't mean he was turning a blind eye. Oh no, he was the freaking ringleader. Mullins and his disgusting friends would set up these parties at the county jail and other buildings in town, and they would pick which inmates they wanted to be with. As a thank you to the women, he would reduce their jail time or whatever punishment they were facing. And if the women didn't want to or refused to participate, he would threaten them with maximum sentences or kick them where it really counts. Threaten to call CPS. He was literally leveraging their freedom for his sexual fantasies. And the most
judges using CPS as a weapon.
The entire county knew. Taya Adams, one of his victims, said, quote,
he may have not wanted
us anyways?
children,
the whole town
but
was
he
doing
wanted
it.
women.
Nobody cared. They're all swingers. It was all a big party to them. It was just so normal. They used this against us to ruin our lives. We still don't know exactly why Sheriff Mickey Steins gunned down the judge, but we do know the sheriff told an arresting officer that the judge was trying to kidnap his wife and kid. We also know that literally seconds before the murder, the sheriff asked to borrow the judge's cell phone to call his daughter, which is how the sheriff learned that his daughter's cell phone number was saved in the judge's phone.
Oh.
Wow. Wow.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing not guilty for that sheriff real fast. For one, I got another. Hold on one thing. But once again, if he went in there as the sheriff, I get it. But once again, temporary insanity. Why? He found his daughter's number and stuff in there and confirmed his fear of going after his family. Everybody, this is the point of evil in some of these people. If I get your hands dirty, you can't do nothing against me.
Mm-hmm.
That's their whole system of CPS and these corrupt judges. There's a pattern there. Okay. A huge pattern. And once again, in Kentucky, what the hell is that? One of those things? Is that one of those counties that they were talking about before with the judge taking him? And remember in that report that there were certain counties that were higher in numbers. Kind of curious on whether or not those higher numbers came from that county.
Let's see.
That's a huge abuse of power, but let alone now, if you report, here's the thing, you don't report on the judge or any, once again, there's your lawyers. You wonder why these lawyers won't speak up against CPS and these judges. They fear all of this and caught in, or their hands have been gotten dirty with this system, because now if one goes down, they all go down, the whole system. You guys get how this is working? That's a pure cash for kids. Certain counties are more. Why? Because no, it's run this way. That way they can't say, well, it's every county. See, there's plausible deniability, because when they go into a court argument, and you'll notice this pattern in every state. I've done research on this. There are some counties that run bigger numbers than other counties. And you know why? Because it's based off money. Because people of a lower income in a county are more likely to lose their children than somebody that has money to fight in this and that. They'll go after middle income like crazy. But now higher income and those real nice neighborhoods or those really, really nice counties, they'll sell it under, well, we're cleaning up the county of all these sick pedophiles and these child abusers. And what do? This is called a land grab, people. Because then they're broke. They can't afford it. It goes back to the bank, and it's another form of land grab. Why? Then they buy up the houses for cheap. And what do they do to those neighborhoods and those subdivisions? They tear them down. And what do they put up? Nice, new, very, very expensive houses for their elite group. Or what else comes in? Nice commercial stuff so that elite group can spend their money and go shopping. You notice that pattern too? Those areas with all that other stuff, you ever notice that there's all of a sudden an economic boom with all these new people and businesses flooding to your area and taking over those farmlands and everything else and stuff like that? Or this, outskirts of towns, because they'll leave residential neighborhoods because they're zone residential. We'll just put up nicer houses, and then we'll make some of them gated communities. But here, look, there's all sorts of big business and big corporation money to pay into the system. And who are the people that are doing that stuff? All sorts of programs for this. That's your lawyers, your doctors, your this. And what are we finding out? You can't trust your damn doctors because of the vaccinations and everything else we're finding out. That's how they make their money. That's being exposed by RFK, of this and that. We shouldn't have any vaccination. What happens if we never vaccinated? Oh, everybody's going to get sick. No, it's called supporting the immune system. Well, we just need to eat better and have better foods. And then, that means that the people that are selling us the food in the grocery stores needs to get cleaned up. That should have been cleaned up a long time. It should have never happened with our food sources. Never should have compromised our food. Why? Because you think rich people eat that same garbage? You eat it out of the Walmart grocery store? Those are the people that are getting grass-fed beef. Not just organic, but very, very selective what they get within their different things, their products and this and that of their chicken and fish and all. And they're getting top shelf. Why? Because they can afford it. But you know how they're able to afford it? Off of you and I's backs.
That's a fact.
Take out that. Go look at it, because here's the thing. If you all did things as a community, you wouldn't need the grocery store. You go straight to the farmer and get what you want. And if you had several farmers, that's called competition. Hey, I've got so much beef. I've got so much of this product and this product. And you always know, everybody knows, well, this place has got the best corn. This place has got the best carrots. This place, if you do the farm stuff, you know about this stuff. But now you've attacked the cops. Why the cops aren't moving? The gazpachos, the soldiers, the foot soldiers to enforce this stuff for CPS. That's who's running this show. Did you, of what they're doing? This other judge, the one that just got shot, what was he using? Hey, if you don't cooperate or this and that, I'll take your kids. Not only am I going to put you in jail, you'll never see your
Mm-hmm.
kids again. What does that do to a mother when you start stealing their kids and never see them and they're in jail? What are they in jail for? Then you
Mm-hmm.
wonder, did they take in jail certain women because they look better or this or that? Oh, it's a prostitution ring, right? You want
Mm-hmm.
a better product. So now all your friends can come in and what do you have to do just to freak off? What do you do to that? You reduce them. Where's your feminists and all these other people that are supposed to be standing up and saying that's degrading a woman, that's making her down just to a piece of meat? And this, where's all those groups that has been out there running their damn mouth for stuff like this when it happens? They're silent
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't fit their agenda. It's bullshit. This is why these groups are bullshit, because where it really matters when stuff like this has happened, they should be the loudest voices. Every women's right group should be all over that case in Kentucky nationally, exposing the shit out of it, using women for just this. If you don't, you get maximum sentence, and we're going to take your kids. Why? Because I'm going to not only put you money, I'm going to put you in jail. I'm going to get kickbacks and money and all this other shit and stuff like that because CPS makes more money, and then the state gets more money. And then I can seek a raise. Why? Because those state judges, oh, here's another thing most people don't know. Their salaries are not set for life. They can't take any other income, anything like that with other jobs and stuff like the federal is. The state ones, even in some states, they get a percentage of the administrative fees that they charge you when you go through child support. Tennessee's one of them. Tennessee, under the administrative things, and here's the thing, you don't have to. You can do a private contract between you and your ex. Let me put this really clear. In all 50 states, this is legal because it's under contract law. You can say you're getting divorced and you can stipulate within that contract without involving the state at all. Why? Because the state is going to get an administrative fee and they're going to try. I'm going to put my baby daddy on child support and I'm going to go through the state and I'm going to collect. Great, do that in a forcible way. And I believe they should be. Well, see, there you go. Every time you talk about certain things, it just starts cutting people out. So it cut in and out. I had to refresh. Sorry about that, guys. But if you'll notice, every time that you go to talk about certain uh, certain things, they start cutting you out. Yeah, yeah. I got caught up in a reset, guys. Sorry about that. It happens here from time to time. Um, that's just one of those things that unfortunately we have to deal with. Technology is not always our friend. Um, so that's one of those things. Had to refresh my page. I do apologize for that. Once again, technology not always on our side. Uh, I think Darren had the same thing happen. Sometimes we get lost within this within certain times. But yeah, they're adjudicating off of profit through these systems, and I get that for deadbeats and this and that. But we've got to work something out. That's a lot better system than what it is. And we can get into private contract that benefits everybody, but we've got to have stiff definitions of what these things are and what they mean. I know there's been some positive things come out of Kentucky as far as 50-50 for visitation and custody of the children. The other thing is, like I said, how they define what child support is for and what it's used for. Each state has its own definition. I think that's one thing that should be facilitated through all 50 states at all 50 states, and that's where I think the federal should somewhat come in on those things. Yeah, I guess we got kicked, man. I don't know what happened.
So we're back. That's all that matters.
Yeah, we're back. So the other thing is we want to go back from this, and we want to understand that this has got something to do. This has been long planned. This is what we're seeing today is nothing more than a very well laid plan. And if you don't believe me, well, we found some of the evidence. And like I said, if we don't get to the Declaration of Independence, because I think we may have a little time would run over, but this is important stuff and we really need to address this stuff. But you guys wonder where this came from. Well, watch this next video.
A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Here are the aims for the United States. 1. Greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of
Listen to that.
rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2.
Yeah, we've already seen that,
Much
haven't we?
higher taxes. 3. An
We've seen that.
increasingly unbalanced budget, despite the higher taxes.
Already seen that.
4. Wild inflation of our currency. 5.
Yep.
Government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6.
That's the stock market.
Greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be
Right there,
accompanied
CPS.
naturally and automatically by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7. Far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states.
That's what CPS does. There's
8.
no lines,
A
guys.
steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9. A constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace. Peace
Cyber
always
attacks
on communist
all the
terms,
time.
of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government, which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world. A part of that plan is to induce
Right there, guys. It's right there. This was laid out long before. This is just the plan. All those things have already happened. Piece by piece, even from the foundation. This is how Marxism and socialism and communism slowly creeps in without a gun. But you hear the thing about state lines. CPS doesn't respect any state lines whatsoever. They've already got their form of government in CPS. They funded the hell out of it. If you notice when DOGE went through to try and do an audit and everything else, what were they told to stay out of? Social Security, what? Title IV. They couldn't play with it. They couldn't even go nowhere near it because it's so well insulated by laws and proceed and everything else through there. Can't mess with it. So instead of, one of the fears that a little bit that was a little bit different was they afraid of taking over the federal. Well, guess what? They're taking over the states. It's completely different from a perspective when you look at it of what's going on in our country. Every bit of that has come to fruition, but there's been a change in our country with what happened in the past, 8-10 years, past decade with Trump exposing things and this and that and coming in. What was the first thing he attacked? DOGE, inflation, overspending of government, wasteful spending, and all those other things. It started cutting its throat. And of course, they're belly aching. We don't have this. It was never meant to do that. You weren't meant to live off the government. The idea of the American dream is to go out and do your own thing, make enough money at it to support your family. Say, oh, well, that's not possible. Yes, because they control the inflation and the stock market. And you've got people like Nancy Pelosi, which you already know that is passing laws and doing things she can that benefits her. Congress has already caught her, as well as several other people that are in the Senate and Congress. They're making money off of things and then passing things and making money on insider trading. That's called insider trading. That's against the FCC. But because they're Congress or anything else, they escape this punishment. Please explain this to me. Because how do they have a different set of rules than the basic American people? They don't. There's the accountability.
It almost feels like they come up with all these different things like the UCC or the UCCJEA or the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights or all these different things just to cover up the other things that they wanted to get rid of. You know what I'm saying? It's like they just make a new set of rules to do it.
And see, that goes back into the history. If you guys go back and watch last week, that's where we told you how the sanitariums faded out under Ronald Reagan and what popped up right after that. The American Safe Families Act by what? Clinton. That it weaponized CPS.
Yep.
When one dies, they rename it. What? It's still under the same. What everybody says, I don't see how the connection between the two. Because it's under your state's Department of Health and Human Resources. It's under the same umbrella, the same regime. This is what we're talking about, corruption. You've got to take it at its core and know who's attacking you. Going after just this, and that, you got to attack the system. And everybody's making money because here's the other thing. You know what other skills these people have other than learning these things and this and that? Their hand fits a shovel. We don't need equipment. We have enough people to dig a fucking hole. Because they ain't got no damn sense of anything else or any common sense that comes through it. And they have proven it by not upholding their oath.
Wow. It's just absurd.
This, and once again, this is the ripping behind the curtain. This is what we do a lot in this show. And if you guys don't understand, if you guys need help with other shows, we've got the ADA show that's equal and the same, that's out there with Henry. You guys can check out. You've got the new show, Crack the Code with Becca, that goes behind the scenes of a lot of others, very specific topics and items. You've got another show that's coming out that's out now with the Angry Citizen that talks about just everything that just pisses him off. And you know, that's just blatantly, this is stupid. This should never happen in our country. And then you have the killing of Charlie Kirk. Of just speaking, whether you agreed with him or not. Listen, I'm not going to silence anybody, but do you notice a pattern in our country? Martin Luther King, JFK, Malcolm X. You wonder why you have ghettos? Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, because they were able to fund them. You know who paid for their funding to be who they were? Black local businesses, small businesses funded them. So what did they do from them? They ripped the fucking economy right from under them to control them. Those are not that. Don't believe me? Go do your research. I challenge you. Go do your research, and you're going to find the same.
Gunnar, you see this question, right? What do you think of Robert F. Kennedy taking over HHS? What's your thoughts on that?
I think he's got it. One, he's very specific in his task, and because he is one, I think he's dealing with a core issue. I think he's dealing with the core issue of the health of America, which is the very foundational of thinking. If you're not healthy, you're not going to think straight. What do you think the corn syrup and everything else has been doing, and these other additives and everything else? In my lifetime, let me give you one example. Did you know that the original ingredients, I believe in the original Gatorade, only had 3 or 4 ingredients and in a glass bottle? That's all. That's all it was. Now you look at the ingredients on Gatorade, corn syrup, and this additive, and this additive, and this additive, and this additive, and this. It was simple ingredients. One of them being actually, mineral salt. That was part of it. Now they'll label it as salt, the generic name, so they could get by, and that's where there was the loophole. Because you got to understand that basic ionized salt is not true of the earth salt, because there's no minerals. And if you don't have the binding minerals, and this is once again chemistry, organic chemistry, that if you don't have a binder for those chemicals as they pass through the body naturally, your body needs what? We're short on minerals. Why are you taking supplements for minerals when it can be found what's found naturally? Salt with minerals combined with those things. Oh, well, Himalayan peak salt, that's great, whatever, your choice. But there's the true salts that come out have minerals in them. They're combined, they're a binder. And there's a reason they're found naturally together. They don't have to be separated. In other words, you can come right off, scrape that shit off right here, and right there, you're done. But they take that out. Why? To sell you a supplement or sell you something you're short of. Why are we doing this and this? And why? Because it sells more products. If you're deficient in vitamin D, let's not do something like common fucking sense and quit going fucking outdoors. Let's go outside. How many cases of vitamin D deficiency, especially in women, are happening across this country? It's unbelievable when you do the research. Why? Because we spend all the time inside and not out in the sun. Naturally found vitamin D. You want to clear up pollution and everything else? Well, let's put on Cadillac converters on things. Let's put Deaf Blue on here. Let's do this. Let's do, do all these other things because of our carbon footprint and everything else. Did you know you can plant one hemp plant or what they call marijuana plant, whatever you want to label that particular thing, and that thing will erase not only your carbon footprint, but even more than what you could ever do, and clean the air and produces, I forgot the number multiple times. It's like a crazy number compared to a tree. You want a solution, there's a solution there. But they don't want to do that. The idea is to keep you sick so you can keep with the big pharma meds, so you can continue with this and continue with that. And what do I think about RFK? I think he's taking that fight of saying, quit trying to kill us and make profit off of keeping us sick. We need to have a better diet. We go, the whole reveal of the food pyramid, with the whistle was blown on that. That was done to promote sales. You don't need that much grain. That's why everybody's so damn obese. It's the consumption. We got to have so many of these. And here's the other misconception: three meals a day. Why? Because that's institutionalized. That's a bare minimum. Did you guys realize that you're supposed to, even a nutritionist will tell you? Matter of fact, it was just recently made mandatory that doctors in their education now have to have nutritional education. There's a big fucking winner. You mean if I just change my diet, how much change it could do in my health, my mental health? I'll stay sick less. All these other things, this and that, and I'm not going to need all these big pharma medicines, let alone the prices of them. At you get a prescription or something like that, it's $200, $300, $400 for some fancy pill that's supposed to fix everything, when we can make some adjustments in our diet. At the same time, you've got other local governments, places like the water's poison and this is poison and this and that. Well, then you need to offset that cost. Where's that cost? Oh, well, we'll just pay for, we'll just let people live here and let them get sick. That was the thing about, some of the mining processes that people were worried about, especially now in Appalachia. You're going to poison our damn water. Then what are we going to do? Why? Because then water becomes a commodity. It becomes an essential thing, but now you're going to have to pay more for it. Whereas before, you could drill a hole and get the water that was coming out of the ground and drink that. And some of it had more mineral deposits or this or that. Well, great. That's good for you. Do you realize how much healthier some people drinking well water with the minerals? Oh no, it needs to filter, it needs to go. No, you need some of those things. But once again, if you had a computer that would take it and realize and filter out what would be a good frequency level, or there was somebody there to do for your household that was good for everybody, instead of everything purified. I don't get it. Because you want to make us sick, because you want bigger hospitals, because you want more research grants, because you want more this, and that. Why? Do you realize how many plants around us alone, that if you went back to the old medicine that's been around, and I talk about old medicine, it's not really old medicine because it's modern medicine. Why? It's been around for thousands of years. Did you know modern day pills and everything else has been around less than 200 years? Less than 100 years, I think. If it's a little bit around 100 to 150. But once again, which is older medicine and it's been proven. I mean, you've got people that were doing stuff in ancient Egypt back when they were, embalming, kings and stuff like that, the pharaohs and stuff like that, that have practices beyond the belief, which is why they're so preserved. I mean, there's so much that we do in this and that. Like I said, it's somebody's belief system that's being forced on you. When you're doing that, and here's my other question that I really have to ask, knowing what I know, how is what these drug companies are doing and these food companies have been doing, the major companies have been pushing this, how is that not an act of domestic terrorism? Go look up the definition of domestic terrorism. It's forcing your beliefs by one way or another to do this and that. When you go to the grocery store, do you have those options of things that are this or that, or things that are free? A lot of neighborhoods, nothing. You get nothing but crap. The funny thing is, people that I know that have gluten sensitivities and some of the others, what the best place for them to shop, and this is not a paid advertisement in no way, no shape or form. This is just an observation. Aldi's. Aldi's has got more selections for people with diabetes and gluten allergies than any other store that's out there on the market that I have seen. And trust me, I've gone through all the big boys and everything else. Well, we've got this, and we've got a little section compared to what percentage of your store that's on the food or grocery side? 1%. The rest of it is just stuff that'll make better deals and better, make you more money. And here's the other thing that a lot of people don't understand. That's just like advertising and everything else that's going on there. Did you know that modern day Christmas was created and the story of Santa Claus was popularized
Coca-Cola
by the Coca-Cola company? But yet that is the known as the largest spending day of the year. They commercialized it, made $1 on it. It wasn't anything to do about family, respect, or any of those other things, or a time together and enjoy time with your family. It was about how much you could spend. Kids have got to have the brand newest things. There's a competition. All the new toys come out a little bit just before Christmas every time. Game station platforms, everything else. These are all things that we all need to know. Why? Because it comes up to the basic structure of CPS. We think CPS is answering to another master, and it's not that way. CPS is controlling the court systems, as you heard, and even if the judges waive, can point the biggest dagger they've got. You heard it in that news report. It ain't getting you arrested. It's stealing your damn kids and then adopting them out because of the federal money they get. It's a payoff. You eliminate every incentive. We're reversing, those acts that both Obama, under the Obama administration, did something similar to Clinton. There was another act it was called, I don't recall off the top of my head, but then Clinton was the #1 initiator. What are we finding out about old Silly Billy? And we ain't talking about cigars either. But here's the other thing. It wasn't just Silly Billy. It was Hillary. What do we find out about backdoor deals and the other things? Now, one other thing we need to address, I believe, especially in the show, talking about those things, because this has come up on a lot of topic, especially with the death of Charlie Kirk, and because he was, a friend of Israel, we have to understand some education here. Just like the Muslim religion of a lot of those things that they say are peaceful or this or that, there are peaceful sects, there are violent sects. Sects, S-E-C-T-S, okay? Israel has the same thing. And we need to understand this. Supporting Israel blindly, I believe, needs to have a little bit finer tooth comb looked at it with a different set of glasses of what is your ulterior motive and who is this going for? Because there are some sects of Judaism that they will not tell you that believes, just like basically the extreme Muslims, you're a dirty infidel, you owe us a tax, we're going to do this and that, we're God's chosen people. I mean, they're very severe. And I have met some of them. You're just dirty, you're just this and that, and they're not pure. And they go about the purity, and they even go back to bloodlines. Do you have a pure bloodline? Do you have somebody that's married outside and married a Gentile? Or, not the word, infidel, their word is Gentile. But we've got to remember one of the things too that once again I believe in, and I know because Charlie's talked about it, several others talked about it, is the fact of the grafting in with what the sacrifice was done by Yeshua, that we'll get into, not so much religion, but that this is the core of the belief, so you understand it, because their belief system goes into their politics, people, and we need to understand that correlation. Okay, that price was done, that as it was said by Yeshua, that was, there is now no more Jew, no more Gentile. We need to take that into account of what that was saying, of saying there's now no division, you're all the same and looked at the same by that particular sacrifice, as that's according to their, the belief system. I line up with that. The other thing that, once again, is the problem I have with the modern church, in my opinion, is the 501c's of this and that, and how those have become business institutions. I have a real problem with that. And there's been several talk about those things, but once again, this goes to what drives them politically, so they can gain power or money. When it came back to it and anything else, there's not a place don't forsake this of gathering or this, that. That's a perversion of anything. It means gather with your people that are like-minded. If we're like-minded, especially here on CPS, against CPS, this and that, we're gathering together as being like-minded people for a purpose or a reason. To drive something off of money and some of these other things and so on and so forth, like I said, and this is going back to the rudimentary of the original language. If you want to talk about that sometime, that's something we could set up a whole different conference and platform as far as interpretation and how it was done. And there's a lot of people that are KJV all the way and this and that. The Ethiopian Bible predates every Bible that's out there. So I always laugh when people say, we're going to send missionaries to Ethiopia. Y'all making my head hurt, because you do realize the original word of the Christianity and of the language and everything there spread throughout Europe before it did in our country. And that shows, once again, the other thing that shows is it shows you the brainwashing and the omission of truth that is being taught here in America. And that's what we're here, especially like on this show and our other platform shows, is going for the truth. We don't care about your feelings. Your feelings are your own damn responsibilities. Okay, let's put that real clear and make that real clear. You can have feelings all day long, and they can be big or small. Those are your responsibility. They're not mine. But I will have accountability when I speak, and that's why that old saying always come out: be slow to speak. In other words, think before your mouth runs, or the old saying, don't let your mouth write a check your ass can't cash. Right? Everybody's probably heard that one. There's a reason those were done, but those were common sense. Why? Because it protected my rights and it protected your rights. Because if I say something out of context and something that's hurtful or harmful, I've not broken a law. Okay? That's called accountability. That's what we're seeing with the Charlie Kirk and some of these people. I got fired because somebody reported me for saying something about Charlie Kirk or this, and that. On an open public platform to the world, when you project stupid stuff like that, that's called accountability for what you said. Do you really think your businesses want to take and lose money over your political beliefs? They don't give a shit. Walmart, Microsoft, X, all those platforms, all those people that got fired. We don't want to be connected nowhere near that or have our company name, because guess what? You're just an employee. You're replaceable. And that doesn't line up with the image we want to give to the public to sell our product. That's called using your head and having some common sense. And that's where a lot of these people fail. Now, there's a lot of things that have come up this week, like I said, so on and so forth. And yes, our team's been extremely busy on many different avenues, taking care of things that we have going on in our personal case. And understand, yes, it's still active. It's still going. We're still fighting, but understanding there's a red tape. Now, one other subject I want to cover real quick, because I know we're running out of time. And guys, we'll cover the Declaration of Independence next week. I guarantee it's just, we really need to have these conversations tonight and show these videos. is we're finding out that a lot of people that are filing for under constitutional questions under a federal case for a civil rights in the federal court, we're getting hung up to where we're finding out there's a court of claim, that a lot of people are finding out sometimes maybe you need to take the alternative and clean up that case and not put everything, all your
Hmm.
eggs in one basket, so to speak. But there's another one, Darren, that we were talking about the other day. I believe it was called the Court of
Mm.
Claims. Now, do you want to go on and talk about this Court of Claims and what it's used for and how it's facilitated that maybe cleaning up those federal filings of the constitutional rights and keeping that in its lane, that these are things that need to be put on over maybe possibly in this other court?
Well, I mean, there's some places that things don't belong in courts, like so. Um, there's in your rights were violated, so we go to the federal court looking for a constitutional relief. You got this, that, or the other, so you go for your civil rights. So a court of claims is a lawsuit. It's a court that handles the actual money damages in these things, and some of these to get out of specific things, we go to other courts to seek relief. Like we can't sue a government agent in their official capacity, so we'll change it up and we'll go to a court of claims to now sue them on their personal levels. So it's another avenue for you to get at these son of a bitches that try to protect themselves under these clauses. Really, that's what they're based on.
So to kind of basically draw a line to make it equal so everybody understands, it's almost like filing an insurance
Pretty
claim
much, yeah.
and a car
Right.
accident. Hey, I was damaged. That's what the court of claims
Mm-hmm.
is for. And it basically gets these people away from this capacity of saying, you did this of your own free recognizance or you willingly participated in these activities. I can't get you in the official, but I can go after you personally. And from my understanding, too, from all that, this also deals with going after their bonds, their insurance, and also their licensing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like doing that of saying, making them
Yeah,
uninsurable.
well, I mean, it goes against. It could go for any of they'll argue over the federal contracts, but you could take their private property, for instance. You could go after, what I mean. So
Yeah.
you could go after things that you can't get in the regular courts. Because these courts now have jurisdiction over their stuff. So you really you hurt them where it hurts in their pocket, right? Like that's where any of us get hurt. It's either make them uninsurable or take from them what they've taken from us. Like you take away their summer camps, you take away their cars, you take away all those things. But if you go to the federal courts, they'll say you can't do that here. But there is a court where you can go, and that's the federal court of claims, man.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. And if a judge does a ruling on that, you talk about a mean form of child support. Um, that's basically what it is. It's it's as invasive as anything else to garnish wages, put liens on property, all these other things, and basically going into the courts and putting them on a payment plan of saying, listen, until this is paid off, almost like we'll make it a comparison to say a chapter
Mm-hmm.
13 where it's a repayment or a restructure schedule to where you
Mm-hmm.
now have so much time. We're going to set this up at so much a month. And no matter where you go, no matter what you do or what you have or what job you have to come up with X amount of dollars per
Yep.
month. And now they have taken on a greater burden, which is going to drive them. And here you can't work in your same job anymore and make that pay, which has now made that um, once again that degree or whatever they have useless, and they have student loans that are at what 200, 300, 600% that they still have to pay on. That's what that's the kind of burden that goes on. But understanding this is not a state level thing, this is a federal level, including their tax returns, seizing their tax returns, doing this, doing that. They'll never do that. It doesn't matter, what it is. In other words, saying anything that you've done, I'm still coming for you, and I'm going to still come and go after you. I'm wondering if there's a connection, and maybe we need to run down that rabbit hole or send somebody down that rabbit hole on whether or not when you file that, you can file it against your Social Security trust. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
question. Now, the other thing I want to address and kind of wrap things up for the show is giving you guys this information. When you have somebody that has violated you, lied, and once again, these things that have gone through is talking about the Brady list. Now, are you familiar with the Brady list?
I'm not sure if I am.
Okay. The Brady list is basically putting them on a list that they are never to testify in court. Their word is shit. And basically it's just turning around, and if they are being labeled as being untrustworthy, not to be trusted with
No
anything.
kidding.
In other words, no security clearances, none of this other stuff. Yes, you can ask for a cop, anything else, and these are after you've won your cases and so on and so forth. So make sure that you understand that you will request the judge refer all these over to the Brady list. If not, you take that adjudication that you've had where you've won, whether it's in either court that we've talked about tonight, either the federal court or the court of claims with this and that, stating these things have done, using that as the evidence, and then having them put on the Brady list, which means they can never be trusted. They will never get a security clearance. They are probably as close to what a convicted felon would almost have, that you are untrustworthy. In other words, I can't trust you with money. I can't trust you with this. I can't, and that's a very bad list to get on. But they don't want you to know about that. But one of the things we do here on the show is, once again, giving you that information, that they don't want you to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's now you guys how to pass this up. Go look it up for yourself.
I'm
what
check
that
that
stuff
out.
does and what we're talking about here tonight. The Brady list is huge. It's definitely one thing that we're going to be requesting at the end of our case, is to make sure these people never damage anyone else ever again. We're also hoping, like I said, amongst some of the other things on the criminal side, these are also, remember, if you're going to seek the criminal side and you do the request, or you have a request for those things, once you go through that, make sure that these are crimes against children that are put on their record, especially with working with CPS and these judges, that it's crimes against, children and family. That is an extra weight that will go on them. They will never get after. Then it turns that whole system back on them, which now makes them a risk to be around children. And now that's turned on them with their own children, with their grandchildren. They're now a threat to children. Hey, the more you know, once again, that's the idea. Turn that same system back on them. And when they're held accountable under the same system that they profited off of for possibly years, decades, whatever it is, that's how we take it. We flip the system back on them, because now you're going to know what it feels like when you are a real criminal. Guys, thanks for joining us. Don't forget, I believe we've got who's
I thought we have cracking the code, right? I think we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Becca. So yeah, check that out. We've got shows. We're going to get a calendar up to you guys on all of our social media posts. Check out the website, CPS Hunting Justice.
CPS Breaking News, CPSBreakingNews.com. Yep.
Breakingnews.com. Go there. There's swag there. You guys can check out if you want. Show how you're connected. Even with this case, we've got some cool shirts on there for and sweaters and everything else you guys can order for the show. Gunning for CPS. Check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff for every show. There's information up there. There's the card there you need to be sending your kids to school for, and getting on the school record on stuff like that of your child's constitutional rights in public schools. The idea is having knowledge and education and putting the protective level in there to be the protector of your family. It's never too late to start, and also educate these young parents getting their kids for the first time of what they can do and the power that they have now and how they can insulate and protect themselves. That's what this is about.
Sir.
Thanks again, guys. It's been a great show. And Darren, we'll just talk a little bit
good
after
to me,
we
man.
get done here and go from there. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. Every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube, the Gunning for CPS channel. Once again, if you didn't see the video last week, that's going to be replayed again on the history of CPS and the system. Go check it out. It's been great again, guys. We've had a great show. Thank you for sticking with us. We covered a lot of ground today, but we've exposed a whole lot. Once again, keep up the fight. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith, because we're coming for you. Tip of the spear, baby.